Hey, Thrand here. I'm here in Eagan, Minnesota, and we are going to Asfolk Viking Martial Arts, and I have Arthur von Heschen here, the living historian himself.
Hello.
Say hi, Arthur. And we're all good friends, and our cameraman today is actually Roland Vorzeka, sword and buckler man himself.
Hi, how you doing?
And you wouldn't even imagine what the interior looks like from the outside. Around here, and I'm here as promised because everybody got me up here for our Forged in Fire style Viking Age competition. It was done with all bloomery iron and under Viking Age conditions. And I've got Arthur von Heschen right here. He runs Asfolk Viking Martial Arts and is a living historian and studies all the old forging techniques, and he's going to explain what kind of conditions that he put our contestants through.
Yeah, thanks, Thrand. So the nature of the competition was to have people forge a hand knife, a small Seax, and it was to forge this item under the conditions that the Vikings would have had. So part of this is using period tools, which includes, the types of hammers and tongs that they use. It includes using, bellows, using charcoal, not to be confused with coal.
Hence the...
Right. It also includes, like Thrand had said, bloomery iron, which is a very temperamental type metal compared to most modern steels people work with. So just to explain some of that, the Viking Age equipment and material, if you're not used to it, it really does exponentially sort of expand the errors that you make. So if you have any issues with your technique in blacksmithing or weaponsmithing, they will absolutely show. So this is an incredibly difficult challenge. The one thing I would like to explain, because I thought this was really exciting, when we first announced this challenge, we had several dozen people who were interested in participating in the challenge. When I explained that they would be using Viking Age tools, that they would be doing these types of things.
Charcoal, fire, Viking Age.
Yeah, well then it dropped, actually with just even the tools, it dropped to anvils, roughly a dozen.
You use the anvils, the hammers, and everything.
Absolutely, so everything is exact.
It was complete.
And then when I explained that this is charcoal and not coal, we ended up with 2. So of the several dozen people who thought they wanted to do this challenge, there were only 2 courageous souls who were willing to take it up.
Yeah. So this is like far more extreme than anything you would ever see on Forged in Fire. That people love that program.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We gave them a long period of time. Was it 10 hours?
Yes, so that's the other thing too is they had 10 hours to forge these blades, and that included forging the blade as well as making the handle. I have one example to show that was a little bit more than 10. It was like 14 hours to construct, but just to show what someone who has a little bit more experience would do. It was made also using Viking Age materials, also using Viking Age equipment. This, I think, gets closer to approximating what a skilled smith would do. I've been forging with Viking Age equipment for roughly 6 years or so. Beautiful. But I would even argue that for me, only having worked with it with 6 years, I probably just recently graduated from being an apprentice. So this, to me, would be more indicative of what an apprentice weaponsmith of the Viking Age would do.
So you made this one, correct?
I made this one.
The same conditions they
yeah, same conditions. This one took roughly 14 hours though, so it was a little bit more than what they did.
I'm sure it looked better at 10 hours than some of these.
Well, I mean, that's true, but this is where, just like anything else, experience with the equipment and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm surprised. I'm amazed that they got what they got at it, as difficult as to work with.
And I do feel like if I handed my blade to a Viking Age person, they would also laugh at my blade. But this is where I am today.
Still a beautiful blade. I do like that blade.
Hey, my name is Andy Freeman. I'm from Annandale, Minnesota. I've been forging for about a year and a half, 2 years. Mostly doing dinner bills and hooks, so and the occasional knife just for friends and family.
We're live at Asfolk. It's day one of the contest. What's going on right now?
Well, we have our first contestant, Andy, here. He's right now just trying to heat up the wood charcoal so that he can start forging. So one thing that's really different compared to modern day forging is the use of wood charcoal. So wood charcoal is very different from coal. Coal is something that's generally made from peat or other like rainforest type debris that has been compressed under the ground for thousands, if not millions of years. And so the main difference between wood charcoal and coal is incredibly dense. Whereas you can see the wood grain, and most of this is air. So what that means from a blacksmithing perspective is this gets nowhere near as hot as coal. So it's a lot harder to bring heat to the metal. It's a lot harder to shape the metal, and you have to work a lot harder to keep a good flame going than you do even with coal.
Thank you, buddy. Remember, kids, stay hydrated. What happens when you break the tongs that they give you in this competition is you get little baby tongs until they can figure out how to fix the ones that you broke. Illusion, or I got it overheated on the end and I got a stress fracture on the end that I'll have to work out or re-weld back together. And I don't think I'm going to get it hot enough to re-weld, so I'll have to work it out.
You're done for today. What are your plans for tomorrow?
So tomorrow, I'm going to try and pinch down the tang back here a little bit. It's still very hot, so I'm not going to touch it with my fingers. And try and drop these shoulders in and get this tang extended out so I can grip it and be able to put a handle on there. And then I'll take the tip here and get that more pointy. Work the bellows in so that you end up with a thinner edge on one side than you do on the other. And then get in for file work and fit and finish with the handle. Getting real close to the home stretch here. Once the tang is in, that's the last bit of hard forging. I'm going to have to do some forge welds though, as you can see where I've been trying to get the tang in. The steel is starting to crumble a little bit. Don't touch, buddy. Stay back. Don't want you to get burnt, alright? And so I'm going to have to make sure I get that up nice and hot tomorrow when I first start off and make sure that they all get stuck together really good before I get moving along.
Cool.
Kids, don't try forging at home.
At least without supervision. Baby tongs. Remember, after a good long day of forging, it's important to stay hydrated.
Forging.
Well, we're through. After 10 hours, I was able to get a handle fit up, although not as tight as I wanted to. I got an edge, although not as sharp as I wanted to. And I got a blade, although not as hard as I wanted to. But in the end, it's complete, and I pass it off to you, sir.
Great job. This is where I think until you've had the opportunity to work with these tools and this material, you don't realize just how tough it is.
It's definitely a challenge when you're spoiled with modern age equipment.
Yes, it is. Well, great job.
I hit my mark, Jason. Now it's your turn.
My name's Jason Peterson in Farmington, Minnesota. Well, I started forging about 2 years ago. I picked up all my setup. I've actually only been forging for about a year. Had my first kid. So took a little hiatus there while he was being born and getting bigger. As far as my favorite thing to forge, I don't really have one. I kind of, not really a weaponsmith or a knife smith, kind of just general smithing. So I've done knives, bottle openers, paper towel holders out of rail spikes, just kind of whatever comes to mind at the time. I think it'd just be fun to kind of get in there, be under time constraints and tool constraints and everything else, and just kind of see how it goes and see where my skill set really is.
This is what he is starting with for his billet, right? Is that what you call it?
Correct.
Okay. There you go. And he's got the fire going here.
This should be fun.
Hi everyone. After a little scheduled or not scheduled pause, Jason is back at it, starting to forge his knife. The second part, I should say. Thane Thrand from YouTube will be here in the Twin Cities on Tuesday. Jason, how do you feel it going today?
I've actually been here just doing this the entire time.
Yeah. That's what it all is. That's all it is. Okay, so check back in a little bit. Thank you.
It's just splitting all the way down. Not good.
What happened?
That split's just getting worse.
So say what you're doing.
I've got this big crack down the center here that, as I was drawing it out, started to open up. And tried a couple times to forge weld it back together. Didn't want to go. I'm guessing I just can't get it hot enough. So I'm just going to cut the end off and go from there.
All right, we've got our forge here with the bellows. And there's Arthur Von Eschen as he works the bellows. And this is what our contestants are going to be using. We actually have the fire going already, but you started that with the actual flint and steel, correct?
Yeah, so at Asfolk, you are not allowed to use any kind of lighters or modern stuff or anything in here. So I used a flint and steel here, and this is historical char cloth, which is a bit different than what you purchase like online or at most places. These days they use cotton, which wasn't available to the Vikings. So this is a linen char cloth.
Oh, excellent. Can you show us how you start the actual fire with the char cloth? If you have a piece I can...
Well, I mean, this one's already going, so it's not that useful. But effectively, you just hit, ouch, that burns. If you hit the steel against the flint, you'll see those sparks. When it lands on the char cloth, it will create this little ember. So now when I blow on this ember, you'll see it brightens up here. And it'll start to spread, and that creates enough heat.
And then you add it to tinder, just like you did, which I wish I had recorded that, but I wasn't paying attention until you'd already done it.
And right now, our goal is not to get to any kind of forge temp. Rocks are really great at retaining heat, but they also retain moisture. So if we bring up the heat too fast with these rocks, they'll all split. Now for some of these, there's cheap rocks, not such a big deal, but a large piece of soapstone's hard to come by in this part of the US, so this is really critical that I warm this up at a slow rate. I wasn't sure if they could do the flint and steel with the historical char cloth, so I always want to make sure I get the fire going first.
It's definitely a very, very different material to work with than hot rolled or whatever, the stuff I get at home.
Oh yeah.
Wood. And then you're also working with bloomery iron too, not just plain old good steel like we normally start with to make a nice knife.
Yes, and bloomery is, as I'm finding out more and more here, very, very much different from the stuff I get at home.
Arthur's helping you with the bellows, and you've got triple bellows going on here pretty much.
Yeah, so at least most of the times for both the smiths, I'll help them just bring their metal up to temp.
I don't blame you. We want a good hot fire.
Oh, it was. Damn it. Thank you guys. Good stuff.
the old smoking and longhouses must have looked similar to this. So there's a lot of difference between this and regular steel.
Big difference.
Actually, bloomery on it.
Correct.
And it wants to separate on you because of the fluids.
Yep. I don't know how many times you layer it. As far as I think they're made, but it's essentially the same as Damascus. Layer it over and over and over again. So you get delamination, a lot of impurities in the stuff, which I guess kind of force some of that delamination, especially when you don't want it. I'd probably cut about an inch and a half off of my overall length.
It actually started separating.
Yeah, the whole hand started right down the center.
Wow. And you go back to where we had to move before to vent it because it was getting a little too smoky. We have our second contestant, Jason Peterson, today, and he was supposed to be forging out here, but as you can see, we've got a lot of rain coming in here at Eagan, Minnesota, and we're at Asfolk. This is the back of Asfolk Viking Martial Arts. So we had to move indoors, and after we moved indoors, we had some problems with smoke ventilation. It was actually going into other areas, and Asfolk does have other businesses around it, even though it looks like a historically accurate longhouse. So Arthur Von Eschen here came up with a unique idea. We moved it to the back door, which has a big opening, a door in the back, and he made a tent system. So I honestly think this is very ingenuity at its best. It's ingenious. He made a tent, and we've got Jason working the bellows, as you can see. And we've got a real good close-up of our fire here, and bloomery iron in there as he's shaping it. But his conditions have changed multiple times, so hopefully he can come out with a great blade. You feeling confident on that?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We're getting better. Stuff just does not want to cooperate.
Doesn't want to do what you want it to do.
Oh, I just don't want you to hurt yourself.
So what we have here are the end products of our two contestants. On the top here we have the one from Jason, and the bottom one here is from Andy. Now, one thing I would like to point out, or at least call attention to, is the fact that working with Viking Age tools, working with Viking Age materials is incredibly difficult for modern blacksmiths. And I'm actually fairly impressed with their first attempt at using said equipment and material, given that they had 10 hours to complete this challenge. For people who haven't worked with this stuff, you can't possibly understand how difficult it is compared to working with modern tools. And like I had said earlier, the fact that we went from several dozen people interested in the challenge all the way down to just 2 people who were brave enough to even take on the challenge, I think says something too. Now, we had a lot of very experienced smiths who are interested in the challenge, but not interested in doing it with actual period stuff. But keep in mind,
right here, I believe.
Both of these contestants,
Beautiful blade.
yeah, absolutely. So both of these contestants, though, they had some blacksmithing and weaponsmithing experience, just they had 0 experience working with period metal and period tools.
Well, let's find out today what these weapons can do, or should I say they are tools. Most people think they're all weapons. Blades are weapons.
Tools.
These are mostly tools. They were used everything to eat with, skin your animals, work wood with. Anything you needed a knife for, that's what a Seax or a Seax was used for, correct?
Correct.
So today we're going to do the riggers. We're going to go through everything. We're going to test every material that could possibly cut in the Viking Age. And we will do some combat cuts on meat and stuff to see if you did have to, you know, put it to the test and see if you could open a man's belly while do it. So
Absolutely.
I think we've got something set up today, so let's get started.
So the different materials that we're going to be cutting as part of this test, the first one here is simply linen thread. And then we have a waxed linen thread, so this is just beeswax applied to the thread. We also have wool, a common material used in clothing. We have leather. We have wood.
All things you would need to cut in the Viking Age.
Absolutely.
And make things.
Just to
get
sort of
by.
work through your daily life. And then we have a couple apples, because of course people need to eat. And then we will later bring you to meat, which of course is also to eat, but it also simulates, the combat in case you need to pull out your knife.
Correct.
So-
And I hate to say this, but this grip is not the most comfortable thing that I have ever used in my life. So, but I think I'll do my best.
All right, so first up is the linen. So I'm gonna hold the material tight here and have him cut through.
Whose knife are you testing?
This is Jason's knife. He was very strong, he pounded hard on it, and I think that kind of hurt him in creating it. That's my opinion. But I mean, other than that, it does have an edge on it. So. No effort. I swear, I thought I was going to have to push. Did not have to push at all.
All right,
So it is doing the job on our...
all right, so that seems to work pretty well.
Not bad at all. Jason did well.
All right, let's try the wax thread here.
Fortunately, Thrand has a big hand. It looks like it's cutting extremely well. Do a few cuts to make sure it's not a fluke. We do different places, parts of the blade.
Very good.
Worked well. Pressed with his edge, not too bad. It was able to kind of cut in and rip.
Yeah, a little
We can
cut,
try
a little
again.
rip.
I'll try to do more of a slice. I think it's more ripping than it is cutting on this material. That was a cut.
Yeah,
pretty
you
good.
could feel the
I
cut
could feel
there
the
in the
cut as it
hole.
went halfway through, so we didn't get a pure, clean cut like we expect right from a razor edge. Now this may pose a problem, we'll see. It cut into it, but of course not through, so. Try to give it a good draw to get the best ability it has. Yeah, it finally went through. So it is a cut, and leather must be cut, you're not gonna rip through that.
I'll let you
And
hold
of
this, do a little
course,
carving on it.
are you sure you don't want to hold that? See what we can do. Takes a bit of force for the carving, but I think this would be a functional blade in that respect. I can carve. Handle's a little squirrely, but yeah, I was able to do that.
All right, I will move out of your way for the apples.
I think we're having some problems with our tang, I don't know, so I'm worried about this one. Stay back, guys, we'll see what happens. Try to cut clean through. I'll try to get a good, yeah, I don't know if I hit too high. Let's play that slow-mo. Did I hit too high? Where's the apple? We lost a tang here.
Yep.
And whatever material he used to help. I hit the apple, but I think what happened is that it broke as it cut into the apple. I cut right below the, let's get the apple so we can see that. And wasn't he hitting a piece of iron or something? It just didn't like it very much. I cut a little high. Yeah, it cut into the top of the apple and it broke.
And with that, actually, if you come over here and see how it broke, I'm not sure where the handle ended up. Also, in your hand.
Yeah, the drawn tang was not
So,
very good.
you know, like I said before, you know, working with period metal, it amplifies all of the sort of deficit in your skill. And one of the big things is this is effectively what's often called today Damascus steel, but it's more appropriately pattern welded, in that this steel is composed of many layers. And when you hit it with a lot of force, these layers can sometimes separate.
And we can see it here.
Yeah,
Let's
you
just zoom
can.
in.
Yeah, you can see it in quite a few places. And this just ended up in the forging process having a weak point in
I
the
can
tang.
actually pull part of one of the layers up slightly with my thumb now, so, yeah, he actually had his, this one is well put together compared to that, you don't see the same
Right.
problems. I think if they would have twisted the metal maybe, before they hammered it out, like I believe the other blade was made?
Yeah, so that's, yeah,
I don't think they
That's-
knew that
that's
technique
correct.
yet, is what it is. This would be like real primitive smiths who didn't understand that.
right.
Yeah. All in all, the edge was good. It's just that the tang did not hold up.
Awesome.
I was impressed with Jason's edge. It did very well. You can see how it cut through the apple. That's a slice. The reason it curved is because our tang actually snapped. I think if he hadn't have been so hard on the hammer and used so much force and kept it a little hotter and made sure he forge welded it back together as it tried to delaminate and come apart, he possibly could have made a better blade, possibly got it done sooner and got it more well formed like we see Andy's. But if it hadn't broke, I think he would have had a good run for winning on a good edge. But that tang was the thing that pretty much did him in there, because it actually just snapped while I was trying to cut through. That's what caused the blade to ride up. I cut high to start with because I want to make sure I can make it through both apples. And anybody who's ever cut anything knows that as you go through more material or from material to material, the blade will drop as you go across because it loses energy and cuts down easily. Still a very beautiful cut. Jason did well on his edge, I can tell him that much. This is our final blade, the sole contestant. Andy Freeman made this blade, and when I first saw it, I didn't think much of it, but it's a beautiful blade in its own right, considering he had no prior knowledge of how to work this material. He actually has a nice sack shape here. He's got a good edge all the way back. It feels good and sharp. So if this one holds up, he's clearly the winner. I mean, in my mind. But we're going to go ahead and finish our testing and see how well it performs and how far it will go. Maybe we'll even get up to our combat test cuts. So go ahead, and we got the same material we had before. That was the linen.
Yeah.
Linen thread.
So up first is the linen thread.
Very easy to cut. Effortless.
Now we have the beeswax. So this is waxed linen thread.
Which is very much like sinew too. It'd be very much similar with the waxing on it. I'm confident with this one, feels good. And I like the grip. It's quite big and it looks quite cumbersome, or Fred Flintstone even still, but it's still good. I like it.
Now we have wool.
I think that cut a little bit better. It actually feels like it's cutting properly.
Yeah.
Not bad. And you can tell that this will actually, in places, will actually cut into the nails.
Next up we have leather.
A little force, but it cut clean through. Much better than our other blade. So his edge clearly wins too, as well as so far it feels quite good in the hand. I'm able to use less force and take off bigger shavings if I was whittling or carving something or working on something. And this is what I think started doing the other one in, because I could feel it giving in my hand just from doing this. Because the amount of force it takes to do that. But this one, yeah, I can even kind of hack at it and it's still feeling a little sturdy. Very nice. I like it. Let's get up to our apple test, and I'm going to try to come through both of them if possible. Hopefully I don't hit any metal. I don't want to hit too high, but up, a little off-center high. Oh, I think I might have hit the wood. But our blade did not break. Did I hit the wood?
Yeah. All right, let's set it back
Let's
up.
set it back up and redo that. That was pretty funny though. Let's redo it. This is a tight area to go through though.
Yeah.
I'll have to let you do it. Sorry. Let's hope 2 times is a charm. I would say it worked, but did I go too low? What happened here? I'm confused. See our other apple. Do we have another apple?
The other apple is
We've
over there.
got cuts. The other
Oh yeah,
apple's
this
got
one actually
cut.
had
Oh,
a,
I think that's what happened.
even the second one has a nice clean cut.
This one has a nice clean cut too, but I think I cut too low worrying about hitting the metal on top.
Yeah, you can see this one here.
In here?
Yep, but it's a nice clean cut.
Do we want to redo it one more time? Or I think we're good.
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, we went through both easily. I just hit a bit low. Not bad at all. Oh, you can see the piece that left behind here. I think the metal fell and it held it in place when they cut it out. So not bad. Where's our sliver? I don't even know where that's at. Not a problem, but I say it passed all the tests we originally planned.
Onto the meat?
Yeah.
All right.
And now for our final test. We have our pork loin here, and as everyone knows, the pork flesh is real close to human flesh. I mean, heck, you might want to just cut up your pork in a hurry, I don't know, but our idea is here, it gives us an idea how it would cut flesh. So if you did have to draw this from your belt as a backup, because I wouldn't think this would be your main weapon, a small blade like this is a utility knife. But could you cut your opponent, and does it have an edge to do that? So basically we're doing the Doug Makita test, will it kill? And we're going to find out. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good cut, and I'll start off lower so that it gives me a chance to cut again if it doesn't do very well lower. Plus it should do better higher if it has more weight at the bottom. So I'm going to go about, I guess about in this section here, if I can hit it there, and I'll start with the easiest cut where I put the most behind it and kind of step into it and go through it, and we'll see what happens. Oh! Well, that is a nice cut. The only reason it didn't finish is it was cutting through, the meat's moving. So yes, it could have went through if it had a little more mass behind it, but that is a beautiful slice into meat. So this is definitely sharp enough to cut flesh, and as they would say on Forged in Fire, it will kill. I think that would do it. Let's go ahead and try again. I don't know, Roland, you think I should hit another one this way? He's out there watching. Arthur, you think one here, or do you think I should come back with the backhand?
Come back with the backhand.
I'm thinking one more here and then the backhand.
That's perfect.
Okay, I'll do one right after the other. And see what we got. I saw something go flying, but I don't know what that was. Somebody else? Everybody's okay?
It was a piece of meat.
Okay, didn't make it completely through, but this is a smaller blade. But that is definitely a cut. It's just being held by a little bit of fat here, fat tissue. That's not meat. It cut through all the way through to the fat and a little bit of, it's almost like a sinew. Or not sinew, but a, what am I trying to say? It's basically sinew. It's basically what that is. And then this one, I didn't make it through the entire meat. But of course that's me coming with the back of the hand right after one cut, so it's a little bit of a weaker blow than I had with the first one. But in my mind, I would say those are all deep cutting wounds that would cut a muscle completely in half, so it's a winner. So I would say Andy Freeman is clearly our winner here, and this is a beautiful Seax for the amount of time he had to forge it and for the materials he was working with and the effort he put in. I would like to thank both contestants. I have to say that Andy is our winner here, Andy Freeman. Jason Peterson gave it his all. They both participated. I want to thank them for participating. It's a very difficult competition. Most of all the other contestants dropped out before they even began. You put your work in, you did the best you could. Both edges were acceptable, except I think Andy was clearly our winner here. I hope you enjoyed our episode, and y'all, this is a dangerous beast here. But I'd like to say, as always, farewell. Ah, I hit too close. Ah. Oh,
That's all.
We're getting kind of low. There we go. Now, very good blade. Arthur, you did an excellent job. If you're in this competition, I would have to say you were the winner.
Dankeschön.
Sorry, I made a mess of your dojo.
Tut mir leid, Teresa.
If you'd like to help support the channel, you can always sport a Thrand YouTube channel shirt that you can get over at viralstyle.com at the Thrand merchandise store. We have coffee mugs, koozies, a wide variety of shirts and hats. You can also help support us on Patreon, and if you do that, you'll also get exclusive content that can only be seen there.